OPEC cutting 2 million barrels a day of production. Coming up, I'm going to tell you why the ball is now in Biden's court. Hi folks, Alex Klingelhoeffer here with Exencial Wealth Advisors. It is 8:44 here in the middle part of the country on Wednesday. It is October 5th, 2022. Here's your morning jog around the economic headlines of the world. We want to start off with this OPEC meeting just included a few minutes ago. 2 million barrel per day cut. Woo! The Saudis want to see the price of the black stuff go higher. Of course, the price of oil has been going down all fall. Reason why Joe Biden has been flooding the market with about 1 million barrels a day of crude oil from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That has caused the price of oil to go down from around $100 a barrel down somewhere around 75, right? It's really good for his approval ratings, by the way. If you look at a graph of the two, right, as oil went up, his approval rating went down. They just sort of tracked each other in an inverse fashion. Now the Saudis say we've had enough of it. We want to cut the global oil supply by a headline 2 million barrels. Now, of course, it's really more like a 1 million barrel cut, really, quite frankly, only about 800,000, right? These are from their headline output target barrels. Fact of the matter is most countries can't even hit that output target. So realistically, it's more like an 800,000 barrel a day cut. Still significant. This comes as the U.S. elections are just 5 weeks away. Remember a couple weeks ago, the U.S. administration put out an all points bulletin to refiners saying we need oil prices down or we will look at export bans. Yesterday, Biden administration came out and said we're not going to ban LNG export. There comes the big question. Is the U.S. and is President Joe Biden going to ban export of crude oil or refined products from the U.S. to keep prices artificially low before the election? Quite frankly, from a logistical point of view, it probably won't even help. But headlines are headlines, and this is not the time to play around. If you are looking from the Biden administration's perspective, you ban export, that floods the U.S. market with additional supplies. But here's the thing. The U.S. is not one market. There are several districts in the U.S. The U.S. has a glut of supply in the Gulf. That's where all of the oil from Canada comes. That's where most of the oil from the Permian ends up, and it gets refined and shipped to other places around the globe. The East Coast and the West Coast actually import their fuel, right? Because there isn't enough transportation here in the U.S. to get the products like gasoline and diesel to where they need to go. So we actually export out of the Gulf and import on the coast. That's how the American oil market works. If Joe Biden makes this mistake and bans diesel export, it just means that logistics get increasingly complicated. Probably won't save folks much money at the pump. Biden, the ball is in your court. You have made every mistake possible on energy policy thus far in your presidency. Let's see if you make the big blunder going into elections. ADP report out this morning, 208,000 jobs, still pretty healthy, right? Wages are increasing. It's still a strong market, guys. Still a tight labor market. It's hard to hire people. Guess what? That does mean folks are able to cover their debts and cover inflation through their paycheck more easily. That's not really the worst thing in the world after having no real wage growth for the past 10 to 15 years. Finally, workers are getting a little bit bigger piece of the pie. Generally, that's actually stimulative for the economy as workers tend to spend their paychecks versus capitalists who end up putting them with investors like us. Last but not least, before we get you off to a nice Wednesday, Apple speaking with suppliers about not only putting iPhones into India, but they're going to put AirPods and Beats there as well. Listen, we've talked about reshoring, offshoring, moving trade lanes away from China. If Apple's doing it, you know it's serious. Moving lots of supply chains to India, where you do have young workers, and away from China, where you do not. The writing is sort of on the wall for the People's Republic. they don't have the workforce needed to be the low-cost producer around the world anymore, and companies are finding alternatives to where they need to make their goods. If you want some additional info throughout the week, feel free to find me on the internet. I'm out there. Until then, you, your family, hope you all have a really good rest of your Wednesday. I am out.